It's about this time, some guy came up to me on the train, and I know who I think it is, but if you're listening to this, you be the judge yourself. I was sitting on the R train on my way to the gym, when suddenly a Caucasian male with a gray hat, black jacket, an iPhone-looking device leans over and says, "I have a message for you." I was in disbelief. I scanned him to see if he was crazy. Didn't look it. I kept an eye out for his hands to see if he was going to try to hurt me. I replied, "What kind of message?" He says, "God told me to give it to you. Do you want to hear it?" I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to hear it. And he said, "It's a good message." And then, before I could say anything else, he said, "God wills what he wills." Or God's will is what he wills, something like that. And I said, "Well, I'm a Christian." It's like, it was one of those things it's funny you should say, because I'm Christian. Now, I noticed he had a smile on his face, as if he was being sarcastic. But from what I remember, it was more like, with his expression, it was more like, "Oh, okay, good," like kind of sarcastically. And then he then got off the train, and I kind of did not know whether this man was warning me or letting me know that I'm doing good. I took it as a warning and got off at Prospect Park, went around to go home. I prayed to God and told him what I thought about that. And this angel, I believe it's an angel, because he came with a message specifically for me. He wasn't there for everybody else. There was a decent amount of people on that train. It certainly wasn't empty. He was there for me. He came with a message for me. Specifically me. And I was not doing good at that time. I was very, very I was thinking lots of evil things, a lot of things that I don't want to think of. I was not being a good Christian, and my faith was weak at the time. But after this happened, my faith was, I was really scared. I had the fear of God put in me. Ironically, I once had a dream. I was on the train, and I saw my niece, and she talked to me. And I looked again, and it was not her. She said to me, "We know who you are," and that scared me. And she looked demonic. I looked up on Google the saying that the man told me. From what I read, it's similar to, and that was the last thing I wrote. From that moment on, what I think the message was God's will is what he wills. And what I learned from after that was that, if I heard it from someone else, is like, the will of God is that we do his law. That, we keep his law and we do his law. So I think that's what that guy was speaking into my spirit. And I do think his name was Gabriel. Because Gabriel is God's messenger. And it's not like, well, who knows? Maybe there's a bunch of messengers. And then another time, I think I met an angel. Well, that was the first time. Another time, I remember I went to the internet to see if anyone else had an experience with a messenger. And one story that I read about was that this little girl, when she was little, some guy came down walking down the road. It was an old man with a beard and all that. And then he was talking to her father, and he was like, "Oh, I just want something to eat. I don't want any money." And they kept trying to give him money, but he refused it. And eventually, they invited him to the house, and the man and her dad had the same size feet, so her dad gave him shoes. And then, he ate with them, and then after that, he left. And she saw him one minute he was walking down the road, and the next they couldn't find him. And her dad smiled or whatever and told her about how whatever, sometimes God sends angels to test people. So the next day, literally the day after reading that, I went to school, and then I gave this black lady some change, or actually maybe some money, by Chambers Street, and I felt like, okay, good, like if that was a test, then I did the right thing. And then if I remember correctly, when I got home, I ordered Chinese food, and when I left, it was either before I got Chinese food or yeah, I think it was after I got Chinese food. I came around the corner, and it was unexpected because you know a homeless person when you see one, and he didn't look like a homeless person. He was like maybe like 6 feet tall, and he had long dark curly hair, and he didn't look Hispanic, but he had like a dark tan. I think he had like glasses on, a black jacket, blue jeans, and then he was like, oh, I'm hungry. Can you get me something to eat? I don't want any money. I just want food. And I could have gave him something, and but I didn't. I was like, oh, but I had these 50 cents in my pocket, and I was holding on to it the whole time, thinking, well, maybe someone's gonna need this. So I gave him the 50 cents instead, and he took it, like hesitantly. So then I got back home, and then I felt guilty, and then I went back out to see if I could find them, but I couldn't. And then later on, from what I think was happening, like I thought about this story, and I was like, wow, what are the odds of that happening? It was like the story. Hebrews chapter 13 verse 2 says, "Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares." This is Stephen. Thank you for listening.